stage just to say, wow, I just love lean so much. That's also appropriate too. And that it's completely acceptable. So, Marcus, I'm going to have you help me watch that because I'm going to be starting off right now, starting off strong. I'm going to make sure I got my, if I say any bad jokes, Marcus, I'm ready with the rim shot. So I got it on the rest if it's necessary, but it's not a comedy show, ladies and gentlemen. This is a lean roundtable. Today, what I want to focus on is going on something that I'm extremely passionate about, and that is Scrum. Scrum, not what you recognize in rugby, but Scrum as the framework for how to get complex work done, to help people, to serve people, transforming their teams, their organizations by generating value through adaptive solutions for complex problems. Design and construction, by the very nature and the definition, is a complex problem. Bringing a set of people, sometimes hundreds, if not thousands of people together to build a one of a kind thing in the world in a unique geography is complex for many reasons. Even in what you would consider to be simple construction, once your team and stakeholders grow to beyond 6 to 9 people, you are dangerously crossing the threshold from a complicated project to a complex project. You have just a variety of experiences, expertise, and nuances of how things come together that you are in the realm of complexity. One of the beautiful things about this agile framework known as Scrum, and Scrum, for those of you that aren't as familiar, predates agile, as agile was not into the language of human beings until 2001. So Scrum goes back to the 90s, as does Last Planner System of Production Controls. Coincidentally, same decade, powerful 1990s. Both those frameworks, I consider Last Planner System a framework. I consider Scrum a framework. Scrum, by definition, is a framework, and it's free. If you go to scrumguides.org, you can read the 12-page Scrum Guide for free, written in a slightly skewed domain towards information technology and software, but is absolutely all about lean. And in the new Scrum Guide that was just published this year, or this bad boy published, it was published in November of 2020. I gotta like use cheat sheets here, Marcus. Whenever there's a pandemic, something happened, my whole sense of time goes out the window. So November 2020, in the guide, they call out different examples of where Scrum is being used. It's being used on every single continent. It's amazing. And its basis is in lean. And the word lean shows up in the guide quite a few times. And it's quite a beautiful thing. So, in that, I'm using lean principles every day to work. I am using Scrum right now. I've got a board set up, and what you often see with people that practice Scrum are just a bunch of sticky notes. My sticky notes right now are digital for convenience of the way that my work is and how I organize with some remote teams. But you absolutely, if you're co-located, this can be low tech, and you can use paper and pens or dry erase boards. All good. The Scrum Guide does not dictate to you how you're going to do it. One of the beautiful things that you'd like to do, and this is why it's called a framework, is you will adapt the framework to suit your needs, just as you adapt lean construction practices like 5S for those that like to be tidy and neat, which I am definitely among those. You'll use it to adapt to suit you. When you adapt with your team, you're now switching over from framework to method. It's becoming your method for you and your teams. It works for you. I just want to highlight a couple things about Scrum. If you want to see Scrum in action with me, shameless plug, later today at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, I will be live streaming on Scrum, hosted by Agile Meetup, and I'll be showing some of these things that I'm talking about right now. So you'll get to see it moving in real life. So some of the interesting things of how Scrum, the framework, is set up versus how Lean is set up, and Scrum is based on lean. Jeff Sutherland, Dr. Jeff Sutherland, and Ken Schwaber that developed this system, they looked at lean and they said, yes, we absolutely want that. They made the domain shift. Jeff was working in, at the time, working for a large medical equipment supplier, and he was also working in banking, a couple other things, and his background is it's rich. You should check it out online when you want to. It's not a Felipe loves Jeff, absolutely does. And Jeff is one of my mentors. And I have the honor and privilege of being a Scrum Inc. trainer. And that was just an interesting thing. That was a perfect example of pull, which some of you that are into lean understand that concept. Pull versus push. Pull is what happened with me in my Scrum training. Scrum Inc. came to me and said, hey, every time we talk to people about Scrum and construction, your name comes up. You're like a prolific spreader of Scrum in the industry. Would you like to make it official and become a trainer for us? And I was like, absolutely. I don't even need to think about that. That is completely aligned with my values and my mission. My mission, ladies and gentlemen, is to inspire people all over the construction industry and future builders and designers and engineers and all people inside, all stakeholders, anyone that touches the creation of a building or civil works to serve human beings adapting to our environment. I want to inspire you to build easier, better, faster, and cheaper today. And that framework, for those of you that study a lot of books, too many books like myself, comes from one of the best industrial engineers ever, secretly helping, not so secretly, but helping Taiichi Ohno develop the Toyota production system. And that person's name was Shingeo Shingo, the very same Shingo that the Shingo Prize is named after. So Taiichi was having trouble getting people to adopt his system. In the early days, people used to call it Taiichi's like terrible system. And it was not well liked because it was such a change from the conventional way of how things were going. And it took Toyota over 2 decades to adopt the system. And every generation, they struggle to get the new generation of people working there to adopt it. So all of you that are struggling in your organizations to adopt lean, welcome to the family, because that is just how it is. Chaos and entropy are coming at you all the time, 24 hours a day. Every time you go to sleep, chaos is creeping in on you. And when you wake up again, you've got to start some things over again to hold the line of the standards that you want to keep, because it's your time. You're the hero of your own movie. That's why I love lean so much. One of the things that I hold near and dear to my heart. Yes, Brittany. Absolutely. I hold the value of respect for people at the heart and center of what I do. That's one of the things that separates lean organizations from others. The way that they look at, think about, and feel with their people makes them completely different from the conventional ways of looking at people as replaceable cogs in the wheel. We are not replaceable cogs in the wheel. Respect for people deeply goes into valuing the uniqueness of what it means to be human. And I just want to pause for 1 second and see anyone's got any reactions up on stage to that uniqueness of being human and that deep value of respect for people. I am Felipe, and this is what it looks like when I pause. Well, we got nothing. Okay. Oh, Brittany, you're coming off. Or are you just gonna clap?
Well, I started out clapping and I said, I really, really value that tenet of lean. That was the thing that hooked me. I'll tell you, when I first learned about lean construction, I was at a project controls conference at IIT's campus in Wheaton, Illinois. And I was floored that that was one of the foundations of lean in the first place. I had thought that it was about primarily process improvement and saving time. That was what the presentations were about to start with. But I mean, you gave a lot of the history here, which I'm so appreciative of, Felipe. Um, but it can be easily missed, this respect for people, because lots of people, when they think about lean, that's not the first thing that pops in their mind. It's not the humanistic side of things. So I'm really, really glad you're calling it out. Um, it's so much. It creates a mindset around why, and then the how is applicable only after that. So that's my reaction. This is Brittany, and I'm done speaking.
That's awesome. Thank you, Brittany. Yeah. In Scrum, like I said, it's completely baked on top of the plan, do, check, adjust, or the scientific method put into action by the genius of Walter Schuhart and William Edwards Deming. I'm going to pause and let Hussein give me some love on that value, Hussein.
Yes. Sorry, I was also shifting back to the phone from the car. Came back. Well, I always, even before I was introduced to lean construction, I always valued that the most important thing about team forming in a project, any project, construction or other, is respect. That's the foundation. I mean, you cannot sit down and work with people if you don't respect them, or if you're not respected. So that's, and I got that also from my training in leadership and project management before even lean. So when I was introduced to lean and I saw that one of the tenant, I wasn't surprised, but I was like happily what the word, it's like it was I was happy to see it as one of the tenants, and because it's very essential. It comes before any other talents for me. You start with there and then you continue with the others.
Right on. Love that. And I got a story to share too. I see we've got Tanika in the audience, Carpenter. Shout out to all the carpenters out there. It's good to see you down there, Tanika. Appreciate you. In Scrum, there are 5 values that they called out specifically. Who's saying, what a perfect transition. That's where I wanted to go next. In order to make a high functioning team, I'm going to give you the 5 ingredients to make it happen. This is what high performing teams all have in common. And these are the 5 Scrum values. The first is commitment. Commitment is what is necessary in order to have the world, the universe shift for you. These are the words from Jeff Sutherland, who's been doing this for a long time. He said, once you commit to something, heaven and earth will move to make that happen. The second value is focus. With all the things possible to do, it takes intentionality and focus with the individuals on the team and the team itself moving in one direction to achieve the goals of what we're trying to do. Why are we together? Why are we a tribe? Even here in this room, we're all joined together because of our focus and commitment on making the built environment better today than it was yesterday. The third value is openness. Ideas and inspiration can come from anywhere on the team. And that leads right into respect. Respect is there front and center. And I talked to Jeff about this and I asked him, why don't we list respect first? And he says, well, you got to commit to being respectful every day, don't you? I was like, all right, Jeff, you got me. That's why you're the doctor and I'm just the grasshopper. And then the final goal, or I'm sorry, the final value is courage. It takes courage to do something new. When I first started doing Scrum earlier in my career, I was on a traditional project, a design bid build project. And my team, some members of the team, not everybody, mocked me for using sticky notes and using this, what they quickly Googled to be an IT thing. And Scrum is not an IT thing by any stretch of the imagination. And it took courage to continue doing it despite the mockery. Fast forward to today, those same people now call for help doing this with their teams. And they know it now because they've tried it and used it. Oftentimes when we do new things, especially in the lean realm, and as those of you that know, a lot of the things we do in lean is tends to be like the newest stuff is 2 decades old or older. It's still new to the people that are in traditional project delivery. It's new to them. So you might not favorably be seen for trying something new. But rest assured, Lean Construction Roundtable listeners, you are exercising your courage to try new things and to do the right thing to make things better, despite what the majority of your project team thinks about it. It will pay off. Continuous improvement is akin to demonstrating and practicing that courage every day. But I've got a story to share. I want to share a Scrum story of a team that was doing lean construction for a long time, and then they started developing Scrum. This is a project team in the middle of the country, it's probably about a 12-hour car ride from where Brittany and Marcus are. They had been practicing lean. They were still new to lean, 2014. This is a 7-person hospital construction team. And they said, we're kind of like hitting the limits and we're starting to get some bad habits and slipping back. We've heard about Scrum. What can you tell us about Scrum? Will you come and show us? I said, absolutely. So we spent 60 minutes together. That's it. 60, 1 hour of looking at what the framework is and then transferring how each of them, the 7-person team, will act on a go-forward basis as a team to embody Scrum and to use it in addition to some of the things they were already doing, like Last Planner in the field with planning and scheduling. So as I was there at this phase of the job, they were just about a quarter of the way through working on a $100+ million healthcare patient bed tower. And this is before COVID. So it was like, it's going to happen the way it's going to happen. And it happened. I mean, fast forward to the end, the hospital was built. Okay. Backing back up, at the time, the client was starting to have some needs, and having a construction team on site usually results in additional change order work for those of you familiar with hospital construction to do little odds and end projects all around the campus. And those are, for some contractors, it's just how they do. They anchor themselves there and serve the client. But for others, there might not be set up that way, especially if they're far, far, far away from the home office, working in a remote area, which is what this was at the time. They were looking to hire more people. They had a Saturday schedule. Everybody had to rotate working on Saturdays just to keep up with the work of building the main $100+ million patient bed tower and then working on some smaller projects. And at the time that I got there, they only had one little small project. And the small project was anywhere from $500,000 to later up to $6 million. But at this time, the $500,000 project on the side on top of the bed tower was pushing the team to the limit. And some of the people were saying that I'm catching up on emails on Sundays from home because I can't keep up during the week. And again, this team is using Last Planner system, but the management team, the general contractor, there's so much work happening with just these 2 projects, the main job and the small side job, that they were honestly looking to hire more people. They couldn't see with just one lean framework, Last Planner system, they couldn't see the waste, and they couldn't get the feedback on what they were doing. So they wanted to shift, hence the call for help. Ladies and gentlemen, never hesitate to call for help. That's like the moral. That's not even the moral story, but the moral story is if you're working Saturdays and Sundays on a job and you feel like you're not catching up, put your hand up and call for help. Something you're doing is probably not value added, and you can let that go. So please call for help. Welcome to the stage, Gloria. Gloria, feel free to say hello and give us your 2 cents.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. Good morning, Marcus and Brittany. I follow you both. So I know you're both members of my club. So that is how I found this room. What a great conversation. And I had to raise my hand when you said, ask for help because I think, particularly in our industry, which is construction, we don't like to ask for help. We like to be, the tough guy and figure everything out. And by we, I mean everybody, both men and women, because women on the job sites, particularly young women on job sites, when I was in my 20s and such, you want to prove yourself and you have to prove yourself like 25 times over. So you definitely don't want to ask for help. Now that I own a construction business and, I'm more on a leadership and executive side of things, delegating is another thing that people just really suck at in our industry. They're not very good, myself included. I had to hire business coaches to help me kind of overcome some of that anxiety that I had to do everything myself as an entrepreneur and work on Saturday and work on Sunday and work on evenings. And now I help other entrepreneurs in the construction industry because and they're people that are on my teams and that I work with. But I see my subcontractors just overworking themselves, and I always tell them, hire a virtual assistant, hire this, take some of your hours back from your life. I promise you, you're going to make more money. And, about 6 months down the road, a lot of them will tell me, hey, Gloria, not only are we making more money, I got some of my life back and some of my time back. And you were right, like my mental health is so much better both at work and at home. And these are things that I think in an industry which does not really focus a lot on HR, we tend to overlook. So, the mental health of everybody in the construction industry is incredibly important for the success of a business. I will say it, I've said it once and I will say it again. Construction is a team sport, so we all have to work together and we have to delegate, ask for help, and all the things. I joined the conversation a little bit later, so I'm sure you've discussed some great stuff, but it's a team sport. So this is Gloria and I'm done speaking. Thank you so much.
I just want to chime in quickly. I never ever understood. I've been working in construction since 2000, and I never understood why everybody is so close to themselves and wants have some big ego and wants to run the show on the project. I never got that. It's never because it's not in my DNA. So every time on every project I worked in, whether it's in Dubai, whether in the US, I I I push people to sit down and collaborate. And even though I can do something, a task by myself, I never did it myself. I just, and then they look at me, and I didn't care. I didn't care if they think that I'm not good enough to do it myself, because uh, I just bring people around and push them and to sit down and do the task together, because we are a project team. I mean, why would I do it myself if I can get the input from everybody? Even if I don't get an input and I tell them this is what I'm doing, at least we have an agreement.
All right, we got Dr. Candy on. Dr. Candy, why don't you say hello and share your thoughts?
Thank you very much indeed, Felipe. Felipe or Philippe?
If we're in France, it's Philippe, but in the US, it's Felipe.
I thought it was Philippe, but I heard somebody else put the E on the end, so I was wanting to check. Thank you. Yes, what I just wanted to say was thank you very much, particularly to you and also to Brittany. So Brittany had affirmed what you had said about lean construction and the factor that it valued people. Well, I want to affirm Brittany in terms of valuing people. I think it's how Brittany and I first came to connect with one another, but the fact that she values people is, I think, why she pinged me into this room, because I promised her something several weeks ago, but I messaged her a couple of weeks ago and said I hadn't forgotten her, but life had taken over. And despite that, she pinged me into this room, which is very valuable. And in a sense, I think that says it all, really. So I don't think I really need to reiterate the message that has gone on, but I just wanted to affirm both of you, both you, Philippe, for what you said about lean construction, and Brittany for the person that she is. And thank you, Gloria, for the things that you've said in terms of the lessons you've learned in terms of delegation. I've been married to an architect for nearly 39 years. And my reflection to both you and the points that Hussein was making is that I actually think perhaps that people in construction are challenged in terms of delegation, not necessarily because they are wanting to keep things to themselves because they've got big egos, but actually because they lack confidence. So bless him, my husband had the privilege of opening a branch office for his employers and doing a whole estate before he was 30. And then he did various other things that were quite extraordinary before he was 40. And yet, when he started his own practice, he lacked confidence. Where did that lack of confidence come from? Well, I've worked with a lot of people in a lot of industries, in a lot of different situations, and fundamentally, my understanding is that it fundamentally comes from childhood. And why construction attracts those sorts of people, I do not know. But as I say, I've known him for quite a long time, and I've over a long period began to break him out of his shell. It's lovely that there are some people like Brittany and like Hussein who didn't come into the industry with that handicap. And long may you lead the industry. I think I've said enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Candy. So we got coming to the stage, my good friend, Stephanie. Stephanie, I know you got some lovely gems to share with us. Take it.
Good morning, everybody. I appreciate being brought up. I have a background in technology, but what this room certainly doesn't know about me is I started out as a chef and working in the hospitality industry. And so what Dr. Candy just said, I think I can answer as to what possibly why people that go into trades and on the construction site may parallel what I found happened in the hospitality industry. People that tend to enter trades of any sort generally have somewhere along the way had their confidence chipped away from their intellectual side of themselves. So they, are pushed or whatever towards something more manual with their hands. And I do think that that could possibly be foundationally where the underlying group of lack of self-confidence may exist in a construction environment. That's all I wanted to add. I'm finished speaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. So going back to the story, ladies and gentlemen, we left off on this beautiful team of, I believe it was 6 people, maybe 7. I don't have my note right in front of me. They adopted Scrum, and they decided that hour, as the hands-on learning was happening, that they were going to use this. And what happened is amazing. It's transformational. The first thing that happened when they started using Scrum was they made a Scrum board. Hello. Something very easy to see. Anyone who's successfully navigated kindergarten can absolutely do it. They made a simple board just to make their workflow visual and so they can co-prioritize, meaning they can get feedback from each other on what should be done first, the most important thing, then next, and so on. And right away, within a week, the Saturday schedule was gone. Gone. No more working Saturdays. Checking emails on Sundays was a thing of the past that they just laughed at today. That was gone. So the team was not working on Saturdays and Sundays. What about the extra work? Well, they did such a great job on streamlining their processes with each other, becoming a team working in one direction, that they were able to take on this same team, this $100 million plus patient bed tower. And at one point, they had 6 smaller projects ranging in size from $500,000 to several $1,000,000 in value. The largest was around $6 million. No added staff. Everyone on the team was promoted in less than 2 years, except for the superintendent because he was already at top of the food chain for himself. But all the other people on the team were promoted. The superintendent remarked to me after learning what Scrum is. He said, I thought I understood Last Planner system, but when I saw how things move with Scrum, it made my understanding of Last Planner even better. And the team stuck with it. A lot of the times we see people pick up some of these lean tools and they think that it's something they go into their toolkit and only grab when they're in trouble or when they're behind or when they've got a bet with somebody and they've got to win that money. It's not always bad things. And that wasn't the case. Now the team says, these are things that we should just always do because it's good for us. It makes our job more fun and enjoyable. And even the trade partners were commenting on how they prefer to work on this project over the other projects in town because of the attitude and how they're treated on the job versus other jobs. These are some of the side effects of adopting this mindset. This team of 7 saw their productivity and effectiveness more than double. And it got the attention of the president of their region. It got the attention of the vice president. And when the executives came and walked the job, all they could see were the symptoms of the thinking that the people had. They didn't actually even notice the Scrum boards. They walk right past it. You can walk right past some of these things and not even notice what type of thinking is involved for a team to do things this way. Even the administrative assistant on this project, who is on site 5 days a week, picked up the framework herself for her work and her administrative work. She made a Scrum board and became so effective that she was able to serve more than 2 projects from this office. Imagine having an assistant serving full-time $100+ million construction projects with no stress remotely before COVID. Oh my gosh. Yes, it happened. It's done. I even later presented with this assistant. Her name's Teresa. And I told Teresa, you are a future Scrum Master. When you're ready to certify up and make it official, I'll make you a certificate right now. You got it. You absolutely got it. She co-presented and shared with other administrative assistants in the region, and people were skeptical, as was she. She resisted Scrum herself on this team for over a year, but the project manager encouraged, stayed committed, focused, respectful, and made it happen. And she opened up and adopted the framework herself. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. Absolutely love this team. They made the transformation happen. And fast forward to now, through the pandemic, when the pandemic hit, these same individuals easily pivoted because they were already used to iterating getting rapid feedback and changing what they were doing based on the reality of their circumstances and situation. They never felt the victim of what was happening. They took responsibility and control and made it happen and served their teams. To this day, we stay in touch very regularly. And I'm excited to go and visit them this month. High fives will be given all around again. They've sent me pictures throughout the year. Look at the scrum board now. Look at this. I have a whole photo album of scrum boards that people take and send me so I can see, sit back and be inspired and in awe of the creativity that is endless in the construction industry. One of the things I want to touch back on what Dr. Candy brought up and what Gloria brought up, one of the things that is unique about construction, I think to some degree, hospitality, definitely, Stephanie, it's there. I know some people work in hospitality as well. Human beings' level of self-esteem is likely the root cause, Dr. Candy, of why people don't think that they're enough or qualified or substantial. And going back to that respect for people, when I'm with teams, I tell them the first place that we're going to practice and exercise that value is with yourself. You need to value yourself and respect yourself at a much higher level than you're currently doing right now. No matter what level it is, it's not high enough. Value yourself more. Treat yourself like the valuable, unique human that you are, that we absolutely need on this planet. We absolutely want you here to be with us in this building project. You got to increase that level up. That level of self-esteem is a forward predictor for how you're going to navigate through the world. When Hussein talked about people with big egos, I will tell you that no one in my house or in any project that I had to send on to will have a bigger ego than myself. And it's not big enough, Hussein. I want it even bigger. However, I taper that with serving other people. So I'm not all, as Stephanie knows, she's been in a bunch of rooms with me. She knows how I am. Not all about, it's not the Felipe show. It's the EBFC show. See how I did that, Brittany? It's that type of thinking, serving other people. Yeah. Exactly. Rap air horns always at the right. I got it. Love it. You've got to increase your level of self-esteem. And I learned this from a mentor who's nearly 70 years old. And he told me, his name's Dan. He said, you don't have the right level of self-esteem. That's why you think too small. And he's like, you think too small, telling me, he's like, man, you're right. He's like, what's your goal? And we talked about what my goals were at the time. And he's like, why don't you double that? I was like, I'm nowhere near what that is right now. He's like, yeah, because you're thinking too small. Why don't you think that you're good enough? And had me go through some steps to increase my self-esteem, which includes self-talk. When you're silent and by yourself, the little voice in your mind, one of the many voices, some of us have multiple voices. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's disturbing how many voices we have in our head. But be careful of the ones that are negative, because as they'll play, those types of thoughts are normal for all people, but some people pay them more attention than to some of the other voices or other thoughts or thinking that are more positive and beneficial to you. So one of the first things you got to do is start respecting yourself more. Sana, bring it to me.
So if I can bring it back to Scrum or to the Kanban, so yeah, so I'm not in construction, but I use the Scrum method as well. And what I learned with the team, so I run product development and marketing on electronic components, and when I use it, I have the on-ramp. I call that, what we need to work on. We have meetings where we talk about what's to do. We have what's completed and then what's approved. That's the process. And what I've learned is, because I have that on-ramp, or you can call it the parking lot where we look at it. There's so many ideas, and it's a good way to prioritize or find out what is important, what's not important. But suddenly we have maybe 20 or 30 ideas of good things or tasks that needs to be done, but they're not that important. It's great at that moment, and then we're saying, okay, is it a must-have or is it a nice-to-have? And then we need to clean up that ramp every 6 months. And we're saying, yeah, maybe that was a good idea back then, but we prioritize differently. And you need to do that when you look at your resources, and not work on Saturdays and Sundays. So it's a really great way to work and using different. You can use it all over, no matter the industry or what you're working on.
That's a fact. I love that, Sana. Thank you for that. Yeah. And going back into Kanban, it's a Japanese word. In English, it's most often translated to a visual board or a sign. And how it's used to limit work in progress, just like Last Planner System, just like Scrum. Kanban is a little more intentional, and it's also simple. I would say for folks, if you want to dabble, Kanban is excellent for simple work. And I love how Sana's using it for ideation and innovative ideas. So they've got their collection of things. There's a repository for things to come into, be prioritized, and get put into action quickly, which is lovely. So in the simple Kanban, if you think about, and I work with thousands of people a year, most people in the design and construction, regardless of where they find themselves, either on the design side or on the management side, in the trades, most human beings can achieve easily 3 unique processes a day. So for example, we'll take a project engineer, for example. A project engineer is going to be engaged in trade management. They're going to be looking at some paperwork, compliance things like processing daily reports, potentially. They might also be involved in requests for information, getting clarity on the project in flight. And they might also be involved in change orders because, hello, someone's got to get paid for the changes being made on site. and they might also be involved in submittal reviews. So seeing that what is intended to be placed in meets the intent of the design and the needs of the users. So those things that they're engaged in, there's only so many hours in the day. And if they create a visual flow to represent those knowledge work tasks and realize that probably can only do a handful of things a day, they can create a very easy work in place limiter or a Kanban board. So like Sana said, they can have like what's planned to do, what they're going to do today, what they're doing right now, and what's done. Because you got to get that feedback and let the serotonin drip when you move sticky notes into done, or when you check something off of your to-do list, or when you strike with a line through what you've accomplished. Serotonin is dripping in your bloodstream and you feel good accomplishing something. And that is just a lovely thing. Now, in Kanban, the work in place limit is set by you. How many things can you do? How many process steps can you go through in a workday? So, like I said, for most people, even architects and engineers as well, people on the design side, I even talked to owners reps, and they've commented me the same thing. Somewhere between 3 to 5 unique pieces of work a day is what they can manage to get done consistently. So you'd set your Kanban limit at maybe 3 to start. So you can process 3 things a day. And until you have an event that changes the process, or an innovation, or bringing in some technology that can automate some of these things for you, you're not going to be able to change how many things you can do. You have to change in order to change how much work you can accomplish on a daily basis. But Kanban is beautiful to make that visual, to see that flow with your team, so that all the people on the team can even come together, as we've talked about, like Hussein does on his projects, coming together when we need to swarm on something or deal with a change when it happens. That's critically important. In Scrum, we don't set Kanban limits. We allow the team to pull from the backlog, or or when they're in flight, the sprint backlog or the to-do list, more work when they're ready. So anytime there's an open spot, the team, the individuals self-select and pull in more work. And if they finish everything that was planned for that sprint or that cycle of work, they can absolutely go into the backlog, or like Sana was saying, the parking lot, just the thing that's on deck in the future. They can pull in more work that's still aligned with the goal, or they can chill out and learn something, or they could go walk the site more. One of the things that happened to me when I started using Scrum, I went from working in the office 12 plus hours a day to walking the field 5 to 6 hours a day and only working in the office 3 hours a day. Radical transformation. That being able to be in the field where the work is coming together allowed me to increase my knowledge and experience with how things should come together, fit and purpose. And that was much more useful to my team as well. That knowledge I still have today. Brittany, what you got for me?
Yeah.
Brittany has to run into her.
Yeah, I do have to run to work, but I did want to share something really, really quickly before I take off. I'll still be on Clubhouse. I'll appear to be. Um, I will tell you, Felipe, you taught me Scrum. I don't know, must have been 5 years ago now, close to that. And I was shocked at how simple, appearingly, the process was to just go through. I think you showed it to me on PowerPoint and created little boxes on there. And you're so much more sophisticated now, using lots of whiteboarding tools. But I will tell you, I created a little post-it note board on my desk, and the ability that it gave me to focus on what is important now, just like Sana was talking about. Like, there's so many things that are on the list of things to do, but it's not important. I was able to prioritize and say, yep, I know all those things are there on the list, but I have the ability to say, yep, these are the few things that absolutely are urgent and important for me to get done today, or I can plan to be prepared more effectively for something that's important maybe next week and start a little bit work on that. Just spend a little brain power today to work towards that particular thing. And I create
It's
scrum boards.
liberating,
Oh
isn't it?
my good, I create so many scrum boards all over the place now. It's almost my first thing to
Hold
do
on.
when I feel overwhelmed.
Right
So
on.
thank you so much for that, Felipe.
That's a gift. It's nothing warms the cockles and the dark corners of a scrum master's heart than for a former student to step forward and say thank you and give some appreciation. Brittany, the sound effects for you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Brittany. That was awesome. We'll miss you when you leave. I'm going to stay here until Marcus forces me to close the room. If there's anybody who's been listening and you've got a question for me or anyone else on the Lean Construction Roundtable on stage, feel free to raise your hand, and either myself or Marcus will bring you up on stage and you can ask your question or give us your comment. We'd love to hear from you, and we appreciate you spending your beautiful morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world, with us talking about something that's passionately held constant by all of us here, and that is lean construction. Go ahead, Stephanie.
Yeah, Felipe, I just wanted to note that I've just noticed that Hilti out of Plano, Texas is looking for a Scrum Master currently. So that just goes to show how much of the groundwork that was laid by yourself and your colleagues in the 90s is making it a much more prolific practice.
Oh, there's
And I just
Stephanie,
say that.
I got a disclaimer on that. So Hilti, my good friend over at Hilti, Gisena, is the Scrum Master that I trained myself earlier this year. And she had told me this is going to change everything. She's an industrial engineer. She's been working at Hilti in the continuous improvement space for over a decade. It has been amazing. She is actually going to be coming on my podcast sometime. She's promised. She's committed. We don't have a date yet, but she's committed. It's on her backlog. And she said that we absolutely are going to bring Scrum into Hilti North America this year. And I am stoked. She didn't even tell me yet that they're hiring for a full-time Scrum Master now, Stephanie. So I'm going to definitely shout out to Gisena, or as her friends call her, GC, that they've already made the switch. It's only been, I think, 2 months since she went through the 2-day training with me, and they've already made the shift. That is how fast these things are. I love that so much, Stephanie. You just gave me a gift. This is for you, Stephanie. I almost was like crushing the strings and I couldn't get the full harp out there. I was so excited. Thank you.
When do you start your stand-up act? That's the one I want to see. Never mind the podcast.
It's already started. Thank you, Marcus. Appreciate the applause. It does fuel.
There is a podcaster I saw actually start a stand-up comedy thing that he does on the side. It's pretty hilarious, Stephanie.
I'll check it out because, believe it or not, I used to do that too. So but we'll take that offline. Thanks, Marcus.
Well, comedic comics actually have a whole new level of confidence to me, to get up there and tell jokes and being able to not hit in front of an audience, but still be able to continue on and be able to hold the conversation is an extremely powerful skill.
Yeah, yes, it is. So on the going back to Scrum, and like Brittany said, when she first learned it, and this is most people, they look at this and they're like, it can't be that simple. And like Dr. Jeff Sutherland tells everybody all the time, constantly reminding people, it's simple to understand, it's difficult to master. To master Scrum or Kanban or any other of the other lean tools and methods and practices, you have to have some daily practice. You have to be focused and committed to doing it every day. I've been doing this for a long time. And even for me, I learn little nuanced things and new things every time, every team. It changes. In Scrum, there are just 3 roles. This is one of the things that separates it from Kanban. In Kanban, there are no formal roles other than being on the team. In Scrum, we have a little bit more description, and we've got some responsibility centers in a couple different positions. And the first one is the Scrum Master. The Scrum Master, or also known as the team captain, is now they've adopted Scrum in education, and that's spreading all over planet Earth. Agile education, Scrum in education. And a lot of the students have said that we don't like the phrasing Scrum Master, and we would like it to be called Team Captain. And that was so unanimous in so many of those early deployments that the shift has already happened. So if you're looking into Agile in education, and you can use it with kids as young as elementary school, it absolutely does work. And there are case studies online for that. You can see that person, the team captain, is, and this is perfect phrasing for it, because the captain of the team plays the game. They play in the game. The Scrum Master on the team plays with the team. They pull work. They pull work from the backlog and they do value added work with the team. Now, what sets them apart is that they have to know the Scrum framework the best, and they need to help the team utilize the framework to serve the needs of the goals of what they're trying to achieve. The product owner is the person, not the project manager. The product owner is the person on the team responsible for what the team delivers. In construction, it is often someone in a PM role, a project management role, will often serve as the product owner because they've got their fingers on what they have to deliver, and they are responsible for delivering said thing. They are holding that responsibility. And then you have the development team, or the developers, or just the team. Call them just the team members. And the product owner, 99.99999%, even in Scrum teams, product owners pull backlog as well. There are very few full-time dedicated product owners that don't also pull backlog with the team. and backlog pulling work, just doing the work. So those are the 3 roles that are kind of unique. The product owner and the scrum master, a little history tidbit for you, Brittany, as you're driving to work and listening in. Those 2 roles used to be 1 role in the early days. They were based on the chief engineer at Toyota. That is where and they found that in order to get the skill set needed to embody what the chief engineer's capabilities are, it takes too long for people to develop and get that. It takes 2 decades or longer until you have those skills to be able to lead without lead with indirect influence, lead with indirect influence. And so they split it into 2 roles in Scrum. Then there are 5 meetings, 3 artifacts, things that we can touch, see, and experience, which are the backlog, like Sana mentioned, where all these ideas go in priority order. We love it. The sprint backlog, which is where the things we're working on the current cycle, the to-do list for the week or 2 weeks or a month, whatever cycle works for you. And then what you deliver at the end of the week. And that's just perfect timing. Delivering value at the end. It is now a beautiful 6 o'clock. I've got time, Marcus, to stay on longer if people want to stay and talk. We'll pause for a break and let people ask questions or come on stage if they like to give a shout out to what they love about Lean today.
Yeah, I would actually, if some of the people in the audience, Tristan, Talia, introduce themselves, and if they have anything to contribute or anything like that, or just to say hi, that's also appreciated as well. We would love to learn more about you and what you're doing, so we can kind of tailor this conversation around some topics that be. Welcome, Tristan.
Hello there. Thanks for holding the room again.
No problem. No problem. Do you want to introduce yourself?
So I'm Tristan Bailey. I'm in the UK, so different side of the day, different sort of 5 o'clock, getting closer to on this side of the world. So I mainly work in software, and we're currently helping a hotel chain in Florida make some dashboarding software to help their PMs be more accountable to the valuations and the building teams for the project. So that's me. I don't know if you wanted a question.
If you have a question, sure, or you can say what your experience has been as far as implementing Lean or Scrum within your space.
Yes. So been doing sort of an agile Scrum process for for quite a few years, and definitely it helps with that sort of flow and that breaking down and adapting to problems and solutions. And I've even taken on a process from engineering, which we work with a bit more in manufacturing, of OEE, of operational efficiency, of machinery that help us monitor the flow and give us a sort of feedback loop on flow of points and cards moving through a system, which sort of feels better as a feedback loop to monitor processes and improvement.
I love that. Hearing that, Tristan. Agile every place and every way, serving people, helping get done more of what they need to get done. Thank you for coming on the stage and introducing yourself. Sounds like a lovely afternoon in the UK.
I got a question. Felipe, can you explain with the team captain or the captain, can you give an example of how that look with the project owner and the difference with that team captain?
Absolutely. The team captain, the scrum master, is the servant leader, and they have to know the Scrum framework so that they can help the team navigate through the framework as they cycle through their work. And I'll give an example. They're going to enable the workflow to occur. The team captain does not move the sticky notes, digital or otherwise, for the team. Everybody is responsible and can move their own work. And like I said before, the team captain will do their own work. In the example of that construction team that I was sharing, let me jump back into my mind and feel that team out. We had in that case, the project manager acted as the scrum master for that team. And it made sense for a lot of reasons. One of the reasons why is that we'll say his name is Matt for purposes of this conversation. Matt had a sense of, and he already embodied the 5 Scrum values just right out, even before he knew what Scrum was. I could tell that he had those tenets, and he understood the framework. He's a very process oriented person. Once he saw the framework and how it all comes together and what going through a week cycle looks like, a 1 week cycle, they decided to go on 1 week cycles. He was able to coach the team and support them and encourage them to adopt the framework piece by piece iteratively. They didn't throw a light switch on and go from darkness to full light. They threw the light switch, saw where the shadows were, focused on the good things, encouraged the positive practices like just making the work visible first on the board. And then they iterated cycle after cycle, week after week, with encouragement from the PM, from Matt, to continue trying and experimenting further. And they brought more into their Scrum practice every week. So in the beginning, Matt said the easiest thing for us to do, because we've already been used to Last Planner system and having daily stand-up meetings, let's, in our Scrum implementation, he asked the team, hey team, can we start off with doing a daily huddle? And in exchange, being the smart servant leader that he is, he said, if you come to this daily meeting for 15 minutes a day, 5 days a week, let's do an experiment and not have the 3-hour staff meeting. And people are like, let's see, 15 times 5 versus 3 hours. Yeah, that's less. He's taking work and burden off the team. They're still having the high intensity communication, but he's giving them an avenue to get deeper into the something in addition to what they're already doing. He's serving the team and thinking about himself because he's on the team too. He's got to pull backlog as well, pull work tasks. So he's helping the team with the first thing, doing that daily stand up. And then as they got more comfortable with that, he had time, he was freed up because he doesn't have to be in a 3-hour staff meeting himself either. Now he can work with the team members to go out into the field where the work happens and see what bottlenecks or constraints are the people facing that he can help to release and eliminate. One of the core things that the team captain does is they have vision across the team to see how people are working, and they work to remove constraints and bottlenecks to enable that better, easier workflow. So one of the things that Matt saw with one of the people on the team is that this one person was taking on too much work. They were getting overburdened. So after he's giving it some time just to see, we're trying something new. Is this person going to adjust? And they didn't. They just continued to be overburdened. So then Matt had to intervene, and he had to spread the workload among some of the other team members until the person skilled up, leveled up, and was able to take those responsibilities back, some of the responsibilities. And by no means was anybody on this team like in jeopardy of being on a performance improvement plan or going to get fired. I mean, this is a high performing team. These are all A players on this team. And even in A players, you still can get overloaded at times, especially as all of you know, in construction, we have a really hard time saying no. And so they were able to spread the workload among the team. This person eventually skilled up. It didn't take long before they were able to skill up. They just needed a little bit of capacity, a little bit of breathing room, and then they were back on their responsibilities again. And so that's an example of serving and then starting with something simple, that daily 15-minute meeting. And the brilliant part on Matt's job is to take that 3-hour staff meeting off the table. And they still got all the same conversations that they needed to have as a team. And they're co-located. They're all together under the same roof and the same 4 walls. And then over time, they added more parts of the framework in. And it's just continued. It has continued to the next project, which I thought was like super sticky, good, positive. Stephanie, got something to
Yeah,
add?
yeah, I do. I'm curious. Can you explain and clarify what the interconnections are between Scrum, applying Scrum principles, Lean practice, and Six Sigma? How does that work in terms of the interconnectedness, and what is the embodiment of the, I would say, the beginning framework?
Yeah, that's a great question, Stephanie. Thank you. So lean is an American invention. It was coined by John Krafcik and researchers, including Jim Womack, studying lean manufacturing across the world. And a lot of that foundational work is in the book called The Machine That Changed the World, which Jim Womack lovingly just refers to as the machine. And the funniest thing is the machine doesn't describe a machine. It describes a thinking system. And when they were coming up with what we're going to call this thinking system, they said, well, we can't call it Toyota because it would just turn everybody off. And they're, researchers under the pressures of what you have to do to publish and have peer reviewed research and all of that in academia, made them come out with this lean. And a lot of people unknowingly think about lean as an acronym, especially in the United States. It's not an acronym. It does not stand for less employees are needed. Absolutely does not. And that typically comes off as a joke, but it didn't land that time, Marcus. So I just bombed on that one.
I actually thought about it when you were talking earlier.
There you go. I'll take it. Take it. And the crowd goes wild, ladies and gentlemen. I'm back. All right, simmer down, crowd. So Six Sigma was born during the quality movement. And during the quality movement, it was something that was baked in-house by General Electric, GE. And they wanted to have their own approach to make it their own. And it's totally good. You should make things your own. And people at that time were already touring companies like Toyota, Honda, Hitachi Tool. I mean, there are many other companies in addition to Toyota that have a deep lean history and philosophy. Lean as we're talking about it now. But it is this idea, this thinking, as I learned from one of people who came on my show, Katie Anderson, who studied with Isao Yoshino, who worked at Toyota. He's actually the person that hired John Shook, the first American ever to work at Toyota City in Japan. And they said the secret to how we do things, and this is true in the writings of Taiichi Ono as well, and Shigeo Shingo will help them develop the system. It is the attitude towards learning. And we talked about this in Clubhouse before. The natural human state is to be in a learning state. And so Six Sigma comes out, it's focused on reducing defects. So it's hyper focused. GE was a manufacturing company. A lot of what is done in Six Sigma unknowingly has a lot of the GE culture baked into that framework. So when you think of someone Six Sigma, you usually think of somebody with a clipboard, taking notes, doing run charts, using statistical process control and other methodologies that were coming out of the total quality movement that was made very popular by people like Deming and Juran and others who also were involved in teaching some of these principles to companies in Japan after World War II. And so that's some of the history. So I consider Six Sigma an offshoot, but it's since spread all over to many other industries outside of manufacturing as well. There's somebody in my company right now that is a Six Sigma black belt. And looking at having talked to this person for a couple of months, we are not aligned on lean principles. So that's just proof positive that you can. And I talked to one of my friends their boss is a Six Sigma black belt in a different company, a software company. And they said that they don't ever see that respect for people that you're talking about, Felipe. All they see is pushing and hard. Some of the culture from GE will come through into the framework. In Scrum, Jeff and Ken, and mostly Jeff, when he intended this to happen, he's like, we've got to set people free. So one of the foundational things, it's never written down anywhere, but Jeff says this all the time when I talk to him, He loves freedom and free will and free choice. And he wants to give that back to people. He wanted to create a framework with the minimum amount of bureaucracy that can allow people to have a more free and natural human experience. And that is the genesis, his motivation, his drive, his intention for the Scrum framework. He borrowed from the best practices in Lean at the time. And then later, he co-created with the signers of the Agile Manifesto in 2001. And Scrum has changed. Every couple of years, they update the guide and it changes. And in this update recently, the 2020, the word Lean debuts in the Scrum guide for the first time ever in the history. It's now there front and center in your face that you have to do Lean to do Scrum. It's not optional if you're going to do it, if you're going to embody the whole framework. So the way Jeff explains it is that you had the work by Taiichi Ohno and Shingeo Shingo early on in the 1950s that took industrial engineering and really brought it to the main show and just took it to a whole nother level. And you can study, there's some books by Taiichi, but I want to just caution everybody, it's not about eliminating waste. That is not what Lean is. And it might take you like 7 books to come to that conclusion. But I'm telling you right now, Adam, I see you down there in the audience. It's not about eliminating waste. And it's not about being at war with waste. Some of that's propaganda. Lean inside of Toyota, and I have friends working in Toyota North America today that we talk on the regular. It's about having a learner's mindset and about being adaptive. And in 2016, Toyota even made it an initiative to become more agile. And I know like probably 3 people working at Toyota right now that are Scrum Masters, and that's their whole job is to serve teams inside of Toyota's information technology group and how they deploy a lot of the cars now are very computerized. So even in their finance groups as well, they're using Scrum in finance for vehicle financing and other places as well. So it's fascinating to see. So it's built on there. They are kind of under this umbrella of the natural human state, which is respect for people, and human beings are highly adaptive creatures. So that learning state is Lean. Lean to me, I think learning would have been a better word, but the dictionary already tortures to the punch, and learning doesn't sell as many books as coming up with a new word does. So, but fundamentally it is learning. And the other offshoots are they have their place. I mean, I'm definitely not against statistical process control theory. And you're like, that's a mouthful. It has its place, and you can use that to understand variation in your processes. But at the heart of it, as Taiichi said so beautifully so many years ago, the whole reason that they're employing this system at Toyota was so they can shorten the timeline from the time that a customer places an order until they get paid. And shortening that timeline down is why they do all the things that they do. And the reason we'll come to work there is because, like they say so beautifully, we don't build cars, we build people that build cars. And their mission is to transform the world and how people are connected and move through the planet. And that is a much grander vision than just building cars. That gets people motivated and excited. And at companies like Toyota and some other lean companies, I want to lose out on naming Honda as well, another car company. And there's some other manufacturing companies that embody this at a high level. And I told my friend GC at Hilti, they are, by all my definitions, a lean organization. Hilti North America. They embody that mindset of learning and continuous improvement and valuing their people as unique, special, and irreplaceable. So love that question. Man, I was like on that question for like 10 minutes. Anybody else have any other questions or comments? We'd love to hear from you. If you're in the audience and you want to come up on stage and say hello and give us some feedback, tell us who you are, we'd love that too.
Yeah, I just want to quick note. Six Sigma, a black belt. is not about eliminating waste. That's green belt. This is what you start. This is the beginning. Black belt is about process improvement, and they make it differently than lean. I'm a freak of learning, so I try to learn many things. And a side note here, I missed on. I'm guilty. I missed on Scrum on my journey of learning, and I would really like to add that. So we'll side note and help me if to find a way to get trained on Scrum. But just to continue is. So they do it. The process improvement that they do in Six Sigma, if you are a black belt, is and it's a bit scientific. And I'm come from scientific background where we do with statistical analysis to determine which items or which things to focus on and which are relevant to what we are doing in our process. So they do that statistical analysis to say that, well, that part of the process, if we do that change, is not going to have a significant effect on the process, and this will have significant effects. So we're going to tackle that, and they do process mapping before they start doing that. So it's not as simple as eliminating waste. Eliminating waste is just the beginning. To start is to lower the river, and it has some similarity with lean. If you are really think about it, but if you are only getting the surface of what Six Sigma and say it's only eliminating waste, it's not giving it full credit. I understand that lean is more easy for people to understand than Six Sigma. This is why it's getting more popular.
Yeah, I think Six Sigma, Hussein, at the heart of it is, hence the name, it's reducing defects. The focus through all the belting, the different levels, the green belt, the yellow belt, the black belt, it's a hyper focus on eliminating defects. It's in the pursuit of perfection. It's quality driven, quality focused. And I just said in lean, it's not about eliminating waste only. And lean and Six Sigma and Scrum, Agile, they are not widely loved all over the world. It is, if you're here, you're in the fringe. Welcome to the fringe. You're on the cutting edge. This is the counterculture to the status quo. Welcome to the Lean Construction Roundtable, where we improve on tradition. We don't don't cut away the things that were good and beneficial. Like I was saying, even in Six Sigma, there are absolutely some good practices there. But I personally would not rely only on that. And I myself am not a Six Sigma black belt. I am a Kaizen Institute trained green belt, or yellow belt, excuse me. Yellow. I tested out of the green belt and went to yellow. But I don't recommend that either. What I do recommend is adopting the mindset, following your curiosity and passion and what you want to learn. Hussein, definitely hit me up on some more Scrum. And then let those things serve you, not the other way around. Always have those things serve you, and then you help your team. That's just one way to go. Love that. Anybody else in the audience want to come on stage and say hello, say good morning, good evening, good afternoon to the lovely people here? You are welcome to come on. All right, Adam. Coming to the stage, Adam Hoots. See if he's going to get up here. He's got his hand up. I try to let him up here. See if he... Marcus, help me out. And
I've noticed this too. Like someone else tried to raise their hand and they couldn't get in. Adam, if you can, I'm gonna just rejoin the lobby, and then we'll try to bring you up. I'll just try to bring you up straight from there. And I'm actually just, let's see if this works.
I love to see this happening. The magic. It's getting...
Yeah, it's like it works.
I was scared for a moment there. The clubhouse wasn't letting us play the way we were used to playing, Marcus. But now my fear's gone.
Felipe. I think I'm in. There's a gentleman on LinkedIn who actually harassed me a couple of times, and he's got this concept called bullshito, and I love it because he often talks about some of these, black belts or green belts or different kind of bends and twists of 7S or 9S or like these other concepts that people just try to take and recreate and reinvent. And I love it because he calls it out as bullshito. And when you go around, his name's Davey Thompson. When you go around and sometimes he's a little disrespectful and over the top about it, but it's all for good purpose and protecting that those key principles like you're talking about, Felipe. Like, who cares if we call it a black belt or a green belt or Six Sigma or Kaizen or Scrum even. Like, please don't get offended and kick me out of this off the stage already, but who cares if we call it Scrum, as long as we're visualizing our work, as long as we're limiting work in progress, as long as we're being productive as a team, we're seen as a team, we're known as a team and acting as a team. So I really love kind of where the conversation's heading, because even the word lean in construction really turns off some of the really really great builders, and it bothers me because there's a lot of things that they're doing that are really lean and that we could spread through the industry really fast if we would get over the language barrier. I think that we could really make some progress. And again, back to the bullshito guy, like, who cares what we call it, right? Let's call it lean. Let's call it total quality management. Let's call it the Toyota way, Toyota production, whatever it is. Let's just make the work easier for the worker, right? Let's bring the work to the worker. Let's create smooth handoffs, transitions. I really like Felipe. I heard a little bit about the rocks on the river. I really like the train analogy that Jason Schroeder's taking us down, and just getting rid of the river in general and making sure that we're laying the tracks and that the train's moving just in time, just behind us, and that we're able to flow around constraints and remove roadblocks from the track before we get there. So, again, love the message here, and I've enjoyed the conversation so far. Appreciate y'all.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. That's exactly what we've got. Deepika, welcome to the stage. And if I didn't say your name right, I've got the bad sound effects ready for me.
Hi, thank you for inviting me as speaker. I'm just going to introduce myself. I'm not much into like I don't have much knowledge into Scrum right now. So my name is Deepika and I'm working in India as a BIM and project planning consultant. So we take care of the construction management area, and so that is what we specialize into, and that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Awesome. Yeah, the other part of the framework that I didn't mention that kind of sets Scrum apart too from Kanban, some of these other frameworks and methodologies, is this whole idea of having a goal for the work we're going to do. And this was borrowed by the people that set up last planner system production controls in lean construction. Having conditions of satisfaction is on the same wavelength, the same type of thinking. Having a purpose. We need a purpose, that true north, Hoshinkanri, to use the Japanese language. What is our direction? Where are we headed? The responsibility of a leader, if you're here on the call and you learned something, congratulations, you just became a leader, because you are at least a half step ahead of those that don't have the experience or the knowledge yet. So serve your people well, ladies and gentlemen. Have a goal. Like I said at the beginning of the call, one of my goals was to make the work easier for people. It's absolutely what fuels me and helps my decision making. What do I say yes to? What do I say no to? It's easy because I have that compass driving. I'm looking at my compass and I can decide, am I stepping closer to my goal of helping people make their work easier, or am I stepping in the way of it? And then it just makes everything else flow. Like Adam said, flow. Davey Thompson, I love on LinkedIn. If you get a chance, and he looks like he almost kind of looks like Jason Statham a little bit, just a little bit. Like they at least grew up in the same neighborhood, and he's getting. And I was telling my wife that Davey Thompson looks like he's been in quite a few bar fights. Like he's got a chin that can take a punch, and he's definitely said some things to get to take a punch. But he's okay
Well,
with it.
Tristan will appreciate this. He's from the UK as well, and Felipe, I actually have a standing monthly meeting with him, where he is a great teacher. He spent a ton of time with Nissan, and he just has just a wealth of knowledge. It is impressive. But I've got kind of bringing you back to the Scrum topic, Felipe. Um, what things, I guess, do you commonly see done incorrectly with folks who are practicing Scrum, and or like what are those most common maybe misconceptions or things where, hey, you might have it, but just kind of these couple of things would really, really improve.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question, Adam. I think the number one thing is that people still push on the team. Like that's the hard for people. It's the common mistake. They think that they just think that we should get twice the work done half the time, like the first time they sprint, the first cycle, and that's just inappropriate, unrealistic. And what that does is it demotivates the team, and it causes It causes so many problems when the leaders that are going to implement Scrum don't open their hand and their mind, reach out to their partners and say, "Let's try this together." And often will tell people, Adam, you should understand the Scrum framework yourself first. You should read the Scrum guide first, and you should practice it first. As Miyamoto said in the the Book of the Rings, you should understand this deeply. And that's how you've got to go. That's the mistake that people make. And my partners in construction got nothing but love for you, and they tend to be overworked, as many of you know that we are. How do you get that capacity? So one of the only times I'll go to the wastes is to just not do something so we can build in some capacity for folks so they have some breathing room to learn something new. I tell people that are embarking on this, Adam, my expectation is not that you go home after work and go watch a bunch of YouTube videos or even hiring a coach and doing it on your own time. My approach, my recommendation for you is that we create some space for you at work, because this is for work, to benefit your work and your clients. And learning on the job is completely appropriate, and we should 100% pay for that and encourage that learning. And that's one of the things that I learned from William Edwards Deming. He'd said many times throughout his career that you have to allow people to learn at work anything that they want. If you're working in a manufacturing company and someone wants to study biology, encourage them and let them. You don't know how that is going to turn into innovation and benefit them and enrich the organization as a whole. So a lot of people want to jump over. I can't tell you how many times we come in, and I do public Scrum training with Scrum Inc., and I do private courses inside of McCarthy as well. And people will come. The only prerequisite is to read 12 pages of words. And it's about half the time people don't read it. And I love the people. We do live feedback sessions, and people will complain that they don't understand some of the terms that we're going over. And I'm like, oh, you mean that term on page 3 of the Scrum Guide that you read before you got here? Yeah. People want to jump over that. You've got to take the time to at least learn what some of that vocabulary is, and then see it. And we'll see it together. And I understand and I get it. So as a trainer, they say the student hasn't learned if the teacher hasn't taught. So I recognize that, and we'll intentionally go slow in the beginning, and we'll actually throw people into acting as a Scrum team right away in the first hour of these types of trainings and engagements, so that they don't have to guess. They'll know when I say one piece flow, they know because they're doing it. When I talk about having a goal, they know because we have one, and they're part of creating it, and they can see it. That's the thing that's missing. And some of the other tools that are out there, the onboarding is not really there. Like even for Kanban was something that was part of an industrial engineering process. And a lot of people looking in the literature, where there's a lot of work been published about this, again, goes back to Toyota in the 1940s and 50s. And now you have software companies like Kanbanizer that has more information on Kanban than Wikipedia or other areas. We have companies now are taking that responsibility of getting the information, the history, the context, and sharing it, and in addition to selling their products. And that's just the shift we are. You can't go to I think there actually is a Kanban university now. So there are now certifications in Kanban as well. That's a totally different topic. So people not understanding the system is a big mistake. very often, very common. And so when I'm coaching with teams, I'll look to see, show me, show me your Scrum board, and then where are the people working, so we can see how the people come together and work. And I even was with the team. We know that prioritization is difficult for a lot of people, and in Scrum, we prioritize our workflow visually with the cards. I came across a Scrum team that had been doing Scrum like from a 20 feet away. It looked like perfect Scrum. You could see evidence of the 5 meetings. You can see them doing the daily stand-ups. But then when you stepped closer than 20 feet and you watched people pulling work, I quickly realized that they were not prioritizing the work tasks. They were jumping to just the next emergency. They still had better output than teams that weren't using the framework, Adam, but they weren't taking that fundamental step to make decisions, to prioritize and to sacrifice. And once we made that adjustment, their productivity doubled again, which was a surprise to them, but not to someone with experience and knowing why prioritization is so critical. Go ahead, Stephanie.
I just want to relate a story. I actually worked for a company that it was a startup, and it was in the construction space. It did exactly what you just identified. We used to have stand up every morning, and it was just the most ridiculous exercise. I used to call it rinse and repeat, because what came out of people's mouths from day to day was the same thing as what had happened the Monday before. It was just to assure the manager who conducted that grouping was assured that you were active and working, I guess. Anyway, and then the other question I had, Felipe, is if I wanted to start bringing these principles into my own business, what would be the very first step that you would recommend? Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. It looks like we got Marcus. Somebody's got their hand up. You can help me bring that person up on stage. Would be clutch. The first thing to start, Stephanie, is to look at a deep understanding of what your business is designed to do. What is the purpose of your business? That's the first thing that you need to bring in. And if you can get that and craft that down visually, if you can draw your purpose in a picture, in addition to writing it down, you're going to better be ready to pick up these other parts and principles, like the 5 Scrum values that we talked about. And then understanding, when and what things should just be easy Kanban, what should be maybe a last mile system if it's a construction company, what should be full on Scrum. So that's where I would start. Draw the purpose of your company in pictures, in words and picture. And then from there, you'll have your Hoshin Kanri, your true north. You'll know what to do next because you have a direction set. Setting the direction is the first step. We got Hari on the stage. Hari, talk to me. Hari's brand new to Clubhouse, ladies and gentlemen. Hari, when you're brand new to Clubhouse, we got to give you some love. And you got to recognize, too, that when you come onto the stage, you're by default unmuted, and you need to mute yourself until you're ready. All right. Who else do we have that would love to come on stage and ask a question? Adam, did you have a follow-on to that very common mistake, that lack of prioritization and pushing on people, I think is...
Yeah, that push word again. Such a debate on that one. I like that you said it's more of like long-term gains, right? Don't expect the short-term, because I think eventually what Scrum helps us do is figure out who's good at what tasks based on how fast tasks move through our process. A follow-up question for you though, Felipe, I guess. Um, Columns in my Scrum process. I mean, is there an easy philosophy to that, or is it columns as you need them? I mean, right now I'm operating on like 4 columns. Just curious what you kind of see from a standard workflow perspective.
That's a great question. So, for all of you that aren't practicing Scrum right now, what Adam is referring to is columns. I want you to think of a spreadsheet in your mind. A spreadsheet has columns, alphabetic letters, if you're using Microsoft Excel, A through double Z or whatever it goes off to nearly infinity, but not quite. And then it's got rows that are numbered, row 1, row 2. So columns with letter names at the top, rows. In a Scrum board that Adam is describing, it's like a spreadsheet that has 4 columns. Column A potentially could be backlog. Those are things in the future that Adam's going to be working on. The next column, B, could be the to-do list or what's on deck for this sprint cycle, or as they say in the Scrum guide, the sprint backlog. And then he's got work in progress right now, or the doing column in column C. And of course, you got to get the credit and get that serotonin drip, get that work done. You got that final column done, where all the things go when they're accomplished. Some other teams, Adam, will add in other columns. There is nothing prescriptive in the Scrum guide for how your Scrum board should be set up. Best practices are you have to have at least the 3 minimum plus the backlog. If you're going to go by the book and the framework, you're going to have a backlog, which is your longer term things that could be in the future. You might have something on your backlog. I have something on my backlog right now that I know it's not going to be even touched or looked at for more than 60 days from now. And I have something on there that won't be looked at or touched until December of this year, which is 6 months away. And then I've got my cycle. I operate on a 1-week cycle. Some people add in a column to show, like, I've taken the work as far as I can. And now, because of a dependency with someone who's not on my Scrum team, I'm going to shift this work task to a intermediate column. And some people have different names for those. Like, I'm going to pull up, I got some sample boards I'm going to look at. People have named these things. Like, bear with me while I pull in progress, waiting on answer. So I found it. So someone sent me, a general contractor working in one of the Western states, created a Scrum board, and in between the doing or in progress column and the done column, so this is an intermediate column, it's called waiting on answer, because so much of what they do in construction management depends on other people to complete the task all the way. That's because they've unknowingly have created their task with another person on the card, but the other person doesn't know it. If they would make the tasks smaller to just be what they've done, then that waiting on answer would disappear and their card would go right to done when you've taken it as far as you can go. But some people, I keep mine pretty simple, Adam, and I'll actually move stuff. If I'm waiting, if I take something as far as I can and I can't finish it, I move it back into the prioritized to-do list until I come back to it or get that answer from that person. But you should flex and let your board expand and contract as needed. At a minimum, the minimum 4 columns: backlog, sprint backlog, aka to do, doing, current work in progress, and done. That's the minimum 4. When you have those 4 in place, you can do all kinds of fantastic things like lowering the water, improving your flow, tracking, getting all 6 Sigma on your tasks if you want to minimize variation and reduce defects and other things. So yeah, that's the minimum, and you set it up. Some people like to go stacked so that the highest priority is at the top of the list and the lowest priority is at the bottom. Some people take those columns and turn them sideways so they look like swim lanes, and work feeds from left to right. So on the far left, furthest to the left of your board is the way in the future. Closest to the in progress line, that column would be that's what's on deck. And then you've got things cycle in and out and back out. I would recommend that if you're sizing this and building a board in real life, your to-do list or your sprint backlog should be as big as your done list. A lot of people make this mistake, Adam. They'll draw some lines and not think about this for a second, and they make their done column tiny. And I'm like, oh, you're planning on not getting a lot done, huh? And they're like, no, I just drew these big lines. I was like, well, here's an eraser. Go ahead and make it suit your need. You want to still get a visual and be able to see into what's accomplished at the end of the week when you get that retrospective meeting to go through that event, that thinking, reflection back, getting that feedback. You got to see what you got done. That's important. It has its place. Good question, Adam. What are the names of your columns?
So I've got and I've got a doing, and then in lieu of waiting on answer, I have what I call a follow up, right? Where it's me, I have to do something, and then I have a learning and a done. So if there's something I want to spend a little bit more time learning on, getting into, diving into, I'll plug it in there, and usually that'll stay there for a week or so before I hit my Friday reflection period. So, um, yeah, I like it, Felipe. Are you gonna have to drop your Venmo in here for all this free coaching
Oh,
you're dropping?
oh no, wait. The answer. I tell people this all the time, Adam. I said, surprisingly, I answer questions for free forever. And there's even if you follow me on LinkedIn, send me a direct message. There is a Scrum and Design and Construction LinkedIn group that I'm one of the owners of with my friends over at Scrum Inc. And it's a LinkedIn group where we talk and dish about these types of things. And I answer questions there as well as people direct messaging me on LinkedIn as well. And I've even jumped on the phone and talked to people about what this is. It's too important to me, Adam, that we can't get people what they need. Just like Davey making time for you, I've got mentors that have made time for me, and I'm just paying forward the beautiful reciprocity of being human and learning culture. Even thank you, Mom, for teaching me some good manners so that I can know how to be in Clubhouse correctly, even though my mom doesn't know what Clubhouse is.
Love it.
I got my dad on the platform. He still doesn't know what to do.
You got to bring him to one of these rooms, Marcus. Get him to wake up early and come to this room next week.
I think he's enjoying the retirement too much. Maybe on the Wednesday.
There you go.
Felipe, if I brought my father here, you'd have a heyday with him. He's an old school senior superintendent over at Whiting-Turner that figured out the IPD process. He's an interesting one.
Yeah, you got to bring him in here.
We definitely.
Right? We love old school people. Oh, I learned more from old school people. Marcus, we got somebody else with their hand up. If you could help bring them to the stage. Coming to the stage, Talha. Say good morning, Talha. Good afternoon.
Hello there. This is Talha, and I'm in Morocco. It's the afternoon here. Yeah, I've been listening to everything everybody has to say here. It's a great lineup, I have to say. Just like Adam mentioned, that this is extremely valuable content. Usually, I'm used to seeing that. People like Felipe or Brittany in conferences or webinars where usually you have to pay like hundreds of dollars. Except apart from the free content that's very generously shared on webinars or podcasts, and so I feel extremely grateful for your time, guys. I'm a so I have a background in industrial engineering. I only learned about lean construction last year while finishing up my master's at UT Austin, which was not even in construction management. It was in water resources management, and I accidentally came across the content, the great content that Jim Rogers puts up on LinkedIn on trends in construction. And that's how I found out about lean construction. And it didn't really take long to find out about people like Felipe or Brittany. A lot of great content out there. So yeah, I've been reading a lot. I'm still in my beginnings in this experience and journey. I since July I came back to Morocco, and I'm working at a family business. It's a medium-sized construction business, and what I can say is we have a long way to go in terms of like organizing work and increasing productivity. And one of the things I'm starting with here is is redesigning the organization and setting up roles and processes, especially, I mean, starting with the office first. So what I'm focusing on right now is really trying to streamline processes and remove, not only track down waste, but just improve processes in general. So that once I move to the field, I could clearly not have to deal with the inefficiencies caused by the office. Um, so I guess, well, one thing about the planning and scheduling aspect of the activity of the company I'm working in right now is, I mean, the schedule that we come up with is usually just contractual. Uh, it's only considered a piece of paper most of the time, and people organize their work on the field as they usually do. And I feel like, based on the things that I've read about Scrum and how it's being described today, that it's way closer to the natural way people want to work on the field and organize their work on the field. Uh, I'm curious. My question would be probably like, how have you seen cases of smaller companies or smaller construction companies that use Scrum on the field or agile methods in general on the field, and how did that work out for them? Um, yeah, that would be my question.
That's awesome. All the way from Morocco.
All the way from Morocco.
Put you on mute for, go ahead and mute yourself, Tahoe, for a second. There you go. All the way from Morocco and back. UT, so University of Austin, University of Texas at Austin, just continues to be a phenomenal school. Everybody I've been to that comes out of that school is just amazing people. So love that you found us here and you came back in. Jim Rogers was also interviewed by one of my friends and one of Adam's friends, Jason Schroeder, on his Elevate Construction podcast. He had Jim Rogers on the show. Shameless plug to Jason Schroeder. Says the same thing that Taha, you're feeling about CPM schedules, critical path method scheduling. It's often just a contractual thing. So I always tell people, like, the client, I've got my feelings on CPM schedule, and Adam knows my feelings. You want to hear us blow it up, come to our YouTube live stream on Saturday, 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Find my YouTube channel, Felipe Engineer, and hit the set a reminder so you come and watch it, or just watch it on the replay when you got time. But we'll be there live answering questions and blowing up CPM. Adam will be there testing out his beautiful microphone. Won't you, Adam? But we're going to be talking about that. You're totally right, Talhan. There are small companies smaller companies are my favorite companies too, by the way. I work in a very large company. We're a medium-sized general contractor. We do multiple billions of dollars of work per year. Smaller companies, here's an example of a smaller company. Here's a company I started working with in Ireland a few years ago, and they were at the time, they were 70 people, small. Today, they're international. I just saw a thing on LinkedIn, like they've grown to an international company in less than 4 years. They were dabbling in Europe a little bit, operations based out of Ireland, and now they're just full on international, working in more than a dozen countries. And one of the secrets to their success, Talha, is that they started using Scrum. And I'm happy to say that I had a hand in that. And the person that brought me in is now a deputy director, which is like an executive, U.S. equivalent in the organization. And this is part and parcel how they work. Their project managers are trained. They train their HR people, their back office people, their accounting people, their finance people. Everyone got exposed to what Scrum is, and they left it voluntary. Talha, that's one of the other amazing things about lean construction and this idea of respect for people. We don't force it on people. And in the field, like you said, they have their way that they like to plan and schedule what they're used to. And we've got to honor that, because if they're working on one of your sites in Morocco, it's likely not their first day on planet Earth. They've likely been here for a little bit, and they've got some things that work for them. And as an industrial engineer, your mind, your training is hyper focused on understanding the process and then making it better to let the work flow. And that type of training, Talha, is not something that is natural to any stretch of the imagination. It's training. You've been trained for years, and you've got that thinking that other people don't have. So you deploy that thinking with your team with caution, respectfully. And you want to just be iterating, to use some agile language, iterating on things that you're going to change so that people don't feel like you're burning the house down to rebuild a new house. Instead, you're making an addition, and then someday in the future, you tear down the old part when the new part that you're creating is sufficiently strong and battle tested to survive, and people want to be in the new addition versus the old way. And you'll do that with enthusiasm and energy. I know you will. You got this. So I'd say in the smaller projects, first getting people's awareness on these techniques is hypercritical. Just get them exposed to see what's possible. And then these other smaller companies, this company in particular was deployed Scrum first on a clean room. So this is the small, 10,000 square foot size project. And they had been using Last Planner system production controls without success to eliminate roadblocks. We came in an hour lunch and learn, showed them the Scrum framework, like we're going to see live on YouTube today at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time at the Agile BIM meetup number 11. I'll be showing some visuals to go with this talk. And they were able to recognize that, oh my goodness, this bottleneck that's been stopping us, we've been beating ourselves up the whole time. And they realized that the client and the construction manager were not aligned on what the forward direction was going to be. But it wasn't obvious until they started using Scrum. And when they saw a card come up and someone said, well, I can't make progress on this until this decision is made, all of a sudden what couldn't be done in 8 weeks was achieved in less than 4 days. And the construction manager saw me later at a conference and pulled me aside and said, we thought we were going to have a delay. I was like, since we changed and operated this way, we accelerated, and we haven't had to spend any extra money to accelerate. We didn't realize that this disagreement between us and the owner was causing the decision not to be made, and was impacting the teams in the field, the people just trying to install clean room walls. We had no idea. It wasn't obvious. It wasn't visual. We're not bad people. And you were right. Be hard on the process, not on the people. And they sent me like a 1-page email thanking me for what we did. And I said, I didn't do it. The team did it. I showed you what's possible as an alternative, and your team picked it up and ran with it. And it was, again, Talha, with enthusiasm and energy, it'll go faster. And with trust. When people trust you because of your training, they can't tell looking at you that you've got some special knowledge. But as you engage with them, it'll become obvious that you have some secret knowledge. You've got some ways of looking at process improvement and that are unique, and it's a talent. And you definitely put that to good use with your company. And these things are easier all day long with smaller companies for one reason and one reason only. You have less people to talk to. So the same company in Ireland, one of the other things they wanted to work on was improving the saturation with Last Planner system. They wanted to make that the standard for planning and scheduling. And they were struggling with a handful of people. So what they did, being intelligent people, they went to the Gemba, they talked to the people, surveyed their teams, and they thought, because they had done one training, that everybody knew what it was, not realizing that at different cycles of the construction process, if I'm in foundations versus being in design, it's a totally different implementation of Last Planner system. And the skills that you need don't directly translate. People don't know how to learn something new in just one repetition. It takes you didn't learn how to tie your shoes by reading about it in a book. You learn how to tie your shoes by practicing thousands of times. It won't take thousands of times with Last Planner. But anyway, so the survey results came back and they had an epiphany. Oh my God. People don't actually know last planner system. One training isn't enough. And then instead of doing a blanket shotgun approach with the whole team, they instead did some targeted training with people that had self-identified as not knowing enough. I said, serve the people. That's an example of pull. Serve the people that have raised their hand. Are pulling for you to give them some more knowledge. They need another repetition, or maybe even more than one. And once they did that, in less than a month, they achieved the 80% saturation of last planner adoption across their company. And it all started with just understanding, what do we have now? The assumption was we train people, they should just know what to do. That was a very poor assumption. It was not obvious to the leadership team. And it took that reflection to make it happen. That's a great question. But yeah, that they've since gone on to win awards, and I'm constantly tagging them on LinkedIn and giving them kudos. It's a beautiful thing. Adam,
Felipe,
you got something?
you said, yeah, I do, and I got to drop off. I got a 10 o'clock for that. So you have so many nuggets in there that you just dropped. First, the plug for the conference. It's 12 o'clock Eastern time, 12 to 2. It's more free content for those who are just loving it so much. I cannot wait for that. I got a quick lunch. I got to finish up fast to get there. Felipe, I'm super excited. One other thing, Taha, that I'll just point out, using Scrum. And again, I think I've got my own modified version of Scrum. I'm excited to learn more from Felipe to make sure I'm more by the book. But one thing I've used it for from a practical perspective is night work communication between shifts, right? Because the ball always advances in the night, and then sometimes there's a gap of communication. Well, when you can agree as a team what work you're putting up there, what work you're moving over, it really helps alignment there. The other thing I'll say, and Brittany mentioned it earlier, she mentioned importance and urgence, and how Scrum really helps her. It's an Eisenhower matrix, I believe, is like the technical term for it. But it
That is
really helps
correct.
you to start categorizing. Is it? All right. What is the Eisenhower matrix, Felipe? But so it basically helps you to really start categorizing your work to 4 categories. 1, it's firefighting. 2 is planning and kind of where you want to live. 3 is delegating. And 4 is what the heck are you doing? It's wasteful. So for me, the other point that I'll mention before I do kind of mic drop, the when you start to visualize your work, which is exactly what we're talking about with Scrum or Kanban or Last Planner system, even, it makes your problems so obvious, or your issues, or whatever you want to call it. It makes what's not going right extremely obvious and apparent, such that you can't do anything but look at it. So, loved the conversation. Thanks for including me, Felipe. Brittany, great nuggets. Stephanie, Marcus, I love hanging out with y'all. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Marcus, it's I think we're an hour and 2 minutes over, man. Are we breaking records, Marcus?
Actually, we had one that went for 2 hours and 45 minutes. So it was like a whole new group of people.
Y'all gonna have to do that one without me, because I've got to step away to make my third and final cup of coffee and get ready for this live stream.
I thought we were doing smoothies now, Felipe. What happened?
No, I'm not pivoted yet, Marcus. I'm still just 3 cups a day. Three cups of coffee.
Okay.
I did do a smoothie this weekend. My wife helped to make it happen. It was awesome. Blueberries. It was delicious. Loved it.
That is awesome. So, if I'm probably definitely gonna close this room. Thank you, everyone. Fred, Don, thank you for coming back, and that means that we're actually doing a good job for the presentations. Tala, I have one question for you. Is your business that you're working in, is it a family business that you're a family member of?
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's sorry.
So, I suggest you to reach out to Don and talk to him about his experience. He actually helped his family business grow They were doing about 100, but he was mainly in the home building business. But he has a lot of lessons learned. He grew his home family business from 100 houses a year to 500 houses a year. So definitely, he had some experience as far as understanding what it was, educating family members about some of the processes and going through that whole ordeal.
Awesome. So I just look him up as Don.
Yeah, he's right below us.
Oh,
He's about to come on stage right now.
awesome.
Good morning. Yes, please reach out. I did connect with you, and I have my contact information in my profile, and we can have a chat. I'm traveling today, but anytime after say 6:30 tonight and tomorrow, I'll be available and would love to share some of my experiences.
That's awesome.
Thanks a
So
lot, Don.
everybody, follow everybody. There's a lot of powerful, experienced people here, especially Sana. Didn't talk that much today, but Sana's coming back next Thursday, same time, and she's going to drop some powerful knowledge in all of you. She's got a podcast too that is lovely, and I highly recommend you check it out. Sana, give people the name of your podcast.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's called The Mind, the Innovation, where I talk to industry leaders about how to be effective. It's about lean product development. It's also about culture, core values. So it's their secret sauce in the different industries. So yeah, but I'm excited for next Thursday. So I'm planning. No, nothing yet. No cliffhanger, but you will see some cliffhangers during the week.
That's awesome. So, Brittany, Marcus, thank you for putting this together, giving me a platform to share my knowledge and get it out of my mind and out into the real world again. Thank you so much. Everyone, you've been a pleasure to have in the audience, talking, communicating, sharing with. We'll see you all next time.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Felipe, I just want to let you know I'm going to be there on Saturday. But yeah, he does a great job. And I'm going to follow up on your podcast as well. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.